In this video, we're going to be making a room system, which will allow us to move through our faux 3D world. Open your global controller object. Make it both visible and persistent. Persistent objects will carry over from room to room. This object will store most of the brains of the game, the variables which initialize everything. Most importantly, it will define all of the locations of the game. Okay, so this is my create event code for the global controller. So we initialize some sounds. This is just optional background sounds that I'm initializing. I'm also setting an initial room that I want to go to, RM-N1 North, right? But the most important part is we need to start to define our locations. So we'll write global.locations equals dsMapCreate. And then what is going to happen after is essentially just a list of locations, right? So we're going to define the N1, the node 1 location, all right? And each node is going to contain, our 8 directions. So north, northeast, east, southeast, south, etc. So we're going to have N1, right? That's our location, equals dsMapCreate, N1 question mark name equals N1. So this is the name of our location that we can use to reference in the game. And then we'll do N1 brackets question mark rooms equals brackets. And this is where we define the indexes of our rooms. So index 0 is going to represent north, and then index 7, the last index, is northwest, right? So it's looping around the cardinal compass. So we're going to enter, our rooms that we've created for each location, right? So RM and 1 north, that's north, west is west, etc., etc. Then we close the brackets. Then we're going to write N1 brackets question mark exits equals, and then this is where we define our exits, right? So how we can move from one node to the next, right? So for instance, is there an exit rather for index 0? And so the location that you can move from north, if we were to click on the forward, if we were to move forward from north, is the location Pano. Then index 1, northeast, there's no way to exit from there. Then node 2, so node 2 is in the index east location, and then empty. So whenever you've got this like empty, quotation marks, comma, that is what's going to define it as empty, and it will skip that index, right? It'll just consider it to have no exit. So you can kind of think in constructing this similar to how you would construct a text adventure game, defining, the rooms and the exits. Then we're going to add, we're going to close up brackets, global.locations, brackets, question mark, N1. So location N1 equals N1. And with all of that defined, we have set our location for N1. And you can duplicate this code as many times as you want to go on to define node 2, right? I've got several nodes. I've got specialized locations as well. Right, so we scroll down. All of this is just defining the other locations. Then we're going to initialize some variables. So we're going to set the depth to -1. Location current is going to be node 1, so we're a starting node. Camera mode, we're going to ignore for now. Direction facing equals 0. So remember, 0 is north. 0 is our first index. Previous direction equals direction facing. Head turn equals false. Cursor lock equals false, because we need a way to, lock the cursor. Global.debug equals false. Turn timer current, we're going to set that to 15. Turn timer, we're going to set this to 15. And then I'm going to do game set speed 30 FPS, game speed FPS, right? You can make this 60 if you want. It really doesn't matter. And then these last two things, so global.current zone index, we're going to ignore this for now. We're going to also ignore global.lockopen for now. Next, create a new step event. So we're in the step event code. So first we want to get the current location map. So we're going to have current underscore location equals global.locations, right? And then our location current. We need to get the room for the current location. So current rooms equals current location bracket, question mark, rooms. Room to go equals current room's bracket direction facing. So this is the room we're going to go next. Current exits equals current location exits. Next location equals current exits direction facing, right? I'm not going to read out every little bracket, every little thing. Again, if you want this code, it is in the tutorial project. You can also copy it from the screen as it's in front of you. If I say every time bracket or whatever, question mark, I'm going to go insane. But this is just essentially getting, the room information from our current location. So now we're going to do cursor x equals obj underscore cursor dot x. Cursor y equals obj underscore cursor dot y, right? So this is just saying we're just passing the position of the cursor object to these variables to use. And then we're going to do if cursor underscore lock. So if we don't have the cursor lock, if it equals false, we're going to open up a new set of brackets here. And then we're going to write a bunch of things. So what this section essentially is, it's defining different states depending on where the cursor is and what zone it's currently covering. I've not gone into zones yet, but basically they're sections of the screen that will allow us to travel left, right, or forward. And we're basically saying cursor left equals when place meeting, cursor X, cursor Y is touching OBJ zone and then a particular zone. So cursor left state is when we're touching the left zone, cursor right equals the turning right zone, exit left equals exit left, etc. Cursor forward equals when we're touching the zone forward zone, so on and so forth. Now for the movement code. So if cursor lock equals false and camera mode equals 0, you can write this for now. We're going to use it later, but it's just, we're not going to go over that now, but it's essentially saying if we want to use multiple camera modes, so either perspective or a 360 panorama, then we're just right now focusing on movement that's in perspective. So if cursor lock equals false, if the keyboard check released equals ORD D, or cursor equals, or cursor right and mouse check button released, mouse button left. So what this is essentially doing is I have it set up so you can use a WASD to move around or just clicking. If you want to be a point and click purist, you can simply ignore this first part of the code and simply write cursor right and mouse check button released, mouse button left. So either we press the D key or we press the left mouse button. Previous direction equals direction facing plus equals to 1, image angle minus equals 45 degrees, okay? Because we want to update the image angle of our little global controller object. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we can essentially copy this and change this to ORD A and cursor left. And we're going to do minus equals 1 rather than plus equals 1. And then the same thing for W. But this is going to be a little different. So if you either hit W or we're in the cursor forward state and you click. So handle exits. So if the next location in our little index array does not equal a blank, and the next location is not the location we're currently in, so location underscore current, update the location. So change location current to next location. And then this code you're going to see a lot. So if parentheses room to go does not equal -1 and room does not equal room to go set to the room we're going to go to. And that will bring us to the next room. And we might as well put this in here. We're going to use it later. So this is for examination zones. So if cursor examine underscore examine and mouse check button released, mouse button left, you're going to duplicate this. So next location equals cursor underscore examine underscore inst dot exit underscore location. location current equals next location, and then the same room transition script. Okay. So this code here is going to give us the basic setup of moving around. Now, I promised to talk about this head turn effect. So I'll show on screen right now what that essentially does. It's like essentially skipping the intermediary locations. So the northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast locations in order to make it appear that you're kind of turning your head. So to do that, to pull off that effect, we have if direction facing equals 1, or direction facing equals 3, or equals 5, or equals 7. Then what we're going to do is we're going to lock the cursor temporarily. We're going to set the turn timer, so turn underscore timer underscore current to minus. And then if turn timer current is less than or equal to 0, then if direction facing equals 7 and the previous direction equals 0, the direction facing minus equals 1. The turn timer current equals turn timer, and cursor lock equals false. Else, if direction facing is greater than previous direction, direction facing plus equals 1, turn timer current equals turn timer, and the cursor lock is false. Or else direction facing minus equals 1, turn timer current equals turn timer, and cursor lock equals false. End our brackets here. We also want to make sure that our direction facing loops back around in the indexes. So you'll adjust this if you only have, by the way, if you only have like north, east, south, west, then you'll want to set these to 4, and you want to have the direction, the number of room indexes equal to 4. So less than 0. If direction facing is less than 0, then direction facing equals 7. If direction facing is greater than 7, then it loops back to 0. Then we're going to transition to the room if it exists and if it's different from the current room. So if room go to does not equal -1 and room does not equal room to go, then we're going to go to that room. This is for toggling debug mode. So I have it set to when you click tab. So if keyboard check released vk tab, global.debug equals to not global.debug. That's just a handy way of like swapping the variable to its opposite. And then if keyboard check released the number 1, so if we press the number 1 on our keyboard, head turn will toggle either on or off. So if you want the player to be able to turn that effect on or off, currently I have it mapped to 1, but you can change it to whatever. And that's it for the step event. Create a cleanup event and write the following. This will delete our DS lists when the game ends to save memory. We'll need a quick way to end the game, so make a key press event for the escape key. Drag and drop the game end event into the code. For our last event, we'll make a draw event to draw the debug information onto the screen. So I have a lot of debug information, but I'll break it down. So if global.debug equals true, brackets, draw self, right? So we want to show the little guy that, turns around from the bird's eye view, show us what direction we're facing. Draw set color to C_white. Draw text X, Y, string, location current. Draw text, and this is how I list them out. So I do draw text X, Y plus 15, quotation marks, direction face, plus string direction facing. Okay, so it's going to show the direction we're facing. Then I do the same thing 15 pixels down for room get name room, so the name of the room we're in. 15 pixels down, I have cursor lock. So you can essentially just duplicate this direction facing a couple times, increment this by 15, the pixels by 15, and then input the different variables. So I have cursor lock, so whether it's on or off, head turn, whether that's on or off, previous direction, so the direction we just came from. Then I have just this little debug information that says press 1 to toggle head turn effects for diagonals. And then finally, cursor forward pan. This is for panorama, so we're not going to use it right now. And that's it. That's it for the debug information. Super helpful to have, though. I've been talking about zones this whole time, now we'll go into what they are. Zones are the areas of the screen we click on to move left, right, or forward. Let's make some new sprites. Make a new 64 by 64 sprite and call it SPR_zone_turn. Give it a color and make it semi-transparent. Duplicate the sprite and name it SPR zone forward and give it a different color. Duplicate it again and call it SPR zone examine and give it yet another color. It's important that you use my exact naming structure. Remember, GameMaker is case sensitive because I refer to these exact sprite and object names in my example code. Notice I don't always say underscore because it's just going to drive me insane, but just you can see on the screen that there's an underscore there, right, folks? I don't need to say it every time.
Get on with it! Yes, get on with it!
Make a new object and call it object zone parent. Make two more objects and call them object zone turn left and object zone turn right. Give them our zone turn sprite and set the parent to our obj zone parent object. Open your first room and put the turn left object on the left side of the screen and the turn right object on the right. Now, when we run the game and click on these objects, we'll navigate left or right based on the node locations we set up in our global controller object. Go ahead and place these objects in all of the other rooms for node 1. Make a new object and call it obj_zone_forward. Give it our zone forward sprite. Create a second object and call it obj zone pan parent. This secondary parent will be useful later on if we want to make our 360 panoramas. Set it as the parent of obj zone forward. Go back to the rooms and place the forward zone where you'd want to link the player to the next node. Open your cursor object. Make it both visible and persistent. Make a create event. Set the depth to -100. This will ensure that the cursor stays in front of all other objects. Create a step event. All you need for now is the following: x equals mouse_x, y equals mouse_y. Now we're going to create a draw event. Make sure to add draw self. Now we're going to change the cursor sprite depending on the zone that you are in. So if, I'm just using a bunch of if statements here, if not place meeting, parentheses, x, y, obj_zone_parent, the sprite index is SPR cursor. If we're not hovering our mouse over any zone, then it's just going to be SPR cursor. If place meeting obj zone turn left. So right here, you'll input essentially the different zone objects that you'll have labeled. And that's why it's really important throughout this whole tutorial to use my naming conventions, or else the code really isn't going to work. But if you have your own naming convention, just keep it in mind. So we'll do essentially just a bunch of duplicates that say, if place is meeting this zone type of object, then turn it to the appropriate sprite. If it's the zone forward, then turn it to SPR cursor forward. So you'll want to take a moment to add that all in. And then once you do, then for the debug, we're going to leave the debug alone because all of this relates only to the 360 panoramas, which will be for a later video. If you have multiple nodes all set up, you should now be able to run the game and navigate back and forth across your world. Great job so far. There is one last zone type we didn't cover, zone examine. In the next video, we'll go over linking rooms with video transitions via clickable video objects. See you there. Thanks so much for watching this series. I hope it helps you create your own 3D worlds in GameMaker Studio 2. Please feel free to find me on Blue Sky at Uncanny Valerie or on itch.io at valerie-paris.itch.io. Remember, you can get access to the full tutorial project for free. Just check the link in the description. When you download the project, you'll get all of the code used to make this tutorial, including the Blender camera render script and the automatic image cropping script. Finally, you'll get a pack of cursors in 4 different styles that you can use to build your own point-and-click experiences. Donations are very much appreciated, but everything is totally free to download and use.